All right, guys. So the day has officially come. The DCU has officially started. Creature Commandos, the first two episodes, have dropped on HBO Max. Now, technically, the start of DC Studios was the Penguin, so pretty good start. I think we can all agree on that. But this is like the start of the DC universe, right? Penguin is an Elseworlds project. The mainline DC interconnected universe continuity is the DCU, and that starts with Creature Commandos, and then it's going to lead into Superman, and then Peacemaker, and then whatever ends up coming out after that. So the main question is it good? And short answer is, yeah, it's. I think it's a really good start to the show. Um, I think that all of the characters, right? Like you have, the bride, uh, Dr. Phosphorus, Weasel, he's back, GI Robot, and Nina Mazursky. I like all the characters. I think they're all really fun. I think they're all really just like entertaining. Their interactions with one another, like it's a James Gunn show, so it has comedy to it, and I think it's all like most of the jokes landed for me. Um, and so all that's cool. I think the action is actually really well done as well. Like the choreography, it's animated, but I don't know. When you're criticizing animation, do you just say choreography? I don't know, but the fights are cool. They're brutal. Like the characters when they're like scrapping with one another, they really get down and dirty with it, which I super appreciate. And it is a rated R show. Like it's mature. There's like blood and gore and cursing and whatnot. There's some explicit stuff going on in the show as well. So if that's something that either turns you away from the show or turns you on to the show, that's there as well. um, and yeah, like all of that stuff works really well. The other thing that I want to commend it on is the world building. Like, this isn't really a spoiler, because it's like literally the first thing that they mention, but it's like they mentioned Themyscira, which if you don't know is like the island where Wonder Woman is from. And yeah, it just like immediately starts off with world building. They mentioned Themyscira. They sort of mention the status of Themyscira in the DCU, and they kind of talk about the villains of the show, which is Cersei. And then she has like an army of like guys like that want to like raid Themyscira, which is like kind of a funny premise. It's pretty silly, but yeah. Uh, the only thing that is like a broad criticism that people have of it, and that I tend to agree with, is that Creature Commandos, it is like a weird choice to start the DCU with. It's like, you'd think you'd start it with Superman or Batman or whatnot, but James Gunn has talked about that, and he's sort of talked about how it's not like the decision to start with Creature Commandos. It's not some like grand like scheme that he's deployed of like, yes, this is how to maximize profit. We're gonna start with Creature Commandos. It's like it was just like the show that they had ready to go, because he actually wrote it before he took over as the head of DC Studios, and so it was already being worked on, and it just happened to be the first show and the first project that was ready to go. And he just didn't want to like arbitrarily lock it up in a vault until like the most strategic moment for the betterment of the DCU to release it. It's like he was just like, nah, it's done, so we'll just put it out there, which I can actually respect that. So it is one of those things as well where it's like, yes, it's a big deal that it's the first project in the DCU, but at the same time, you really shouldn't go into it sort of with those expectations, because it is just a show. Like it's just a show that James Gunn is making, and it's not like trying to be like this big spectacle, this big like this is the beginning of the DCU. Like it's not trying to be that. Another criticism that I've seen of the show is that it just feels like more Suicide Squad. It feels like more Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's like I don't think that that's an unreasonable take, like I obviously understand what people say when they say that, because it is about a bunch of like miscreants, a bunch of criminals, a bunch of like losers coming together, forming a team. And I'm only 2 episodes in, but you assume that they're gonna like gain some kind of kinship or whatever, and then at the end they're gonna like save the world, or whatever. Like, it's kind of what he did with Guardians. It's what he did with the Suicide Squad. And it's like, I understand saying that James Gunn just makes the same stuff over and over again, because like the skeleton of Guardians and Suicide Squad and Creature Commandos is similar. But I also do feel like that's kind of a lazy way of looking at it as well. Like, when you actually look at like the end product, it's like they are quite different. Like, Guardians being a space opera is not like the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad, like those characters, is not like Creature Commandos. Like, Creature Commandos is dealing with monsters. Like, if you don't know, the Bride is literally the Bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein is also a character in the show. So it's like, this is a show about monsters dealing with like universal monsters in a sense. I mean, the other characters aren't universal monsters, but you know what I mean. So it's like if you want to like do the most like surface level analysis, it's like, sure, it is similar to other James Gunn things, but to just say like, oh, James Gunn is lazy, he just does the same thing over and over again, it's like, I just disagree. And yeah, so far I will say the best character is the Bride of Frankenstein. Like, they oops, give me one moment actually. Sorry, I hadn't pulled up that image. But yeah, they get into the bride's backstory. And yeah, like that's where it starts getting like super compelling. And it's like, okay, like yeah, like that's where it starts getting really good. So yeah, the other thing to address, I would say, is continuity, right? Like, it's been one of those things where James Gunn is like, guys, this is a new universe, but also Amanda Waller is here, and she's played by Viola Davis, and this character on the left here, he's Rick Flag Sr. He is Rick Flag's dad that we've seen in the past DCEU movies. So what is the canonicity here? Is some of the other movies canon to the DCU? Like, how are we having these characters crossing over, but then you're recasting Superman? And so James Gunn has kind of explained it. I don't think he's done the best job of explaining it, to be honest. The way that I'm thinking about it is, this is a new universe. These are not the same characters that was in the DCU that are played by the same actors. I don't think they're the same characters. I think that they're like variants of those characters, and they are variants that have very similar histories to those other characters. At least that's how I'm interpreting it, but to be honest, it is a little confusing, the whole canonicity thing. But basically the important thing that James Gunn has said is that you should not assume anything about the DCEU happened in the new DCU unless it's mentioned in the DCU. So like in the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker killed Rick Flag. In this show, they talk about how Rick Flag's son was killed. Or well, they technically they say that he died. So it's like, that happened in the DCU. His son died, and so that plays into his character here in Creature Commandos. So, it's one of those things where it's like, do I wish it was cleaner? Yes. Do I wish James Gunn had a more easy to understand explanation? Yes. At the end of the day, when I'm watching a good show, is it something that I'm overly concerned about? No. At least I'm personally not. If that's something that irritates you more than me, I mean, I get that. So yeah, man, at the end of the day, I'm really liking the show. I think the first episode is fun and enjoyable. And then the second episode, when you start getting into the bride's backstory, that definitely is when I started to really get locked into the show. And by the end of the second episode, I was like, hell yeah, man. I mean, I'm ready for more. So yeah, just go into it understanding that this is a show, that this is just a show that James Gunn wrote. It's not this like big grand thing of like, we're here, it's the DCU, it's this big like grand spectacle or whatever. It's like I think if you go into that, you might be going into it with too much expectations. I would say, like I think that will be Superman. This is just like I mean, it's basically James Gunn doing another Suicide Squad. Which, by the way, another thing to mention on that front, when people are like, "Oh my gosh, he's just doing it again," and it's like they also like mention at the beginning, like right at the beginning, that this is the next task force. So it's not even like when it comes to that criticism, it's not even like James Gunn is hiding the fact that he's doing the Suicide Squad again. So I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I think it's a good show. I think it's a solid start for the DCU, just as far as they're putting out a quality show to start off the DCU with. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.